In this session, we will be talking about the recent trends in accounting. We would be talking about what are the recent changes which has happened in accounting. Thanks to the modernization and thanks to the evolution in science and technology, some of these techniques, some of these technologies, some of these methods have been caught upon, and those have been incorporated into the management, by the management into the area of accounting as well. So let's look at some of the recent trends in accounting. One of the recent aspects which has emerged is what is called as value chain analysis. Now, value chain analysis, it actually comes from strategic management, but this value chain analysis has now been incorporated in accounting, and let's see how exactly it will help you in terms of accounting. So before that, let us try and understand what is meant by value chain analysis. So value chain analysis refers to the process of dividing various activities of a business into primary and support activities and analyzing them. Now, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this bifurcation? Why are we doing this separation? We are trying to understand how each of these individual activities has a contribution towards the overall output of the product or the service that is rendered by the company or the organization. So whenever you pick up any activity of a business, there are broadly two categories. You have the primary activity, then you have the support activity. So we're just trying to understand and see how these activities can go about influencing the final product, how they can go about influencing your final product or service. So that is what is meant by value chain analysis. So here you're trying to identify what are the various activities, what are the various processes that are involved in creating a product and performing a service. So you have the entire activity of your business on a broad scale. You're trying to break it down into smaller parts. You're trying to divide that into smaller activities to try and see what influence, what contribution does it have to the overall organization. Now, whenever you talk about value chain analysis, you have to understand that the entire product or the entire service, it comes as a result of involvement of multiple activities. So, for example, if you look at a hotel, hospitality service, or if you look at a hotel, when you walk into a hotel and when you pick up or when you hire a room, now there are so many sub activities which are involved. So you have front office, then you should have housekeeping, you should have the food and catering, then you should have the facility management, you should have transportation. I'm just talking about one simple service of hospitality. But the moment hospitality comes into picture, you understand how many components of service or products are involved over there. So the analysis, the breaking down of this comprehensive product or comprehensive service into smaller parts, and then trying to identify what contribution does each or individual product has on the overall output is what is referred to as value chain analysis. Now, here, when you're able to break up a product into multiple components, you would be able to understand how effectively each of these are contributing to your overall service. So I'll give you a very simple example. You're staying in one of the best hotels in town. They have excellent food, they have excellent housekeeping, the facility is beautiful, the transportation department is very prompt. But unfortunately, the front office, that is the reception, it is very nasty. So the moment you walk into that hotel and then you start talking to the receptionist over there, you have a very nasty experience. So when you have at the first point of interaction itself, when you have a negative impact on your overall product experience or your service experience, you have already diluted and you have already made up a perception about the end product or the end service that you're likely to get. So for example, you walked into the hotel, you had a nasty argument with the receptionist over there. You would be least bothered about how good the food is, how well the housekeeping is, how well have they tucked your beds with the sheets and all that. You would not be interested in that. So you must understand, the moment you pick up a comprehensive product or service, there are multiple activities which are involved, and each of these activities has got a significant contribution to the overall product or the overall service of your organization. So you're trying, when you carry out value chain analysis, what you're trying to do is you're trying to break down the overall product, you're trying to break down the overall service into multiple components, and you're trying to see how effectively are they trying to, are they able to function. So end of the day, when you're doing this, you're trying to decrease the overall cost that is on the organization, and then you're trying to increase the differentiation. You will be able to bring up, you will be able to come out with product differentiation. How many of you remember that ID Fresh, PC Mustafa's brand, the company responsible for manufacturing idli batters? Sometime back, they had done an overall revamp in their product offerings, and they had come up with something which is called as organic. They started coming up with ragi dosa batter. They started coming up with, so what are they trying to do over there? They have tried to break down their activities. They've looked at each of the individual components, and they're trying to see, is there some way they can create, they can bring about a change in that, and on a whole or on a broad scale, they are able to see, can they bring about an overall differentiation to the product? So that is what they're focusing on. Now, let's talk about value chain analysis a little bit more. Value chain analysis was put forward by Harvard Business School, and it has got multiple stages. So this is how, if you look at the overall value chain analysis would look like. So whenever you look at an organization, there are two components. If there are two aspects to it. One is what is referred to as the primary activities. Second is the secondary activities. Primary activities comprises of inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, after sales, and your secondary activities would cover infrastructure, human resource, technology, procurement. So if you try and focus on these, you would be able to bring about a change in the margin. At the same time, you would be able to bring out with a value addition to your overall organization. Now, let's talk about a little bit more about value chain analysis. So remember, the value chain analysis comes from strategic management, which is one of Porter's contribution to management. And like I said, you can broadly classify it into two sets of activities. You have primary activities and then you have secondary activities. When you talk about primary activities, you're talking about activities where there is a direct interaction which goes, or there is a significant direct contribution in the product or in the execution of the service. So primary activities are those activities which has got a direct impact on your end product or the end service. Talking a little bit more, you're talking about inbound logistics. So here we are talking about procurement. We are talking about warehousing. We are talking about inventory. We are talking about the quality of components which are used, quality of materials which are used. How effectively are you storing them? What is the kind of security that you're providing to your? So these are the different aspects which are coming into inbound logistics. Then you have operations. So every business, especially manufacturing-oriented business, they would be having an operations team. The operations team is responsible for converting the raw materials into finished goods. They would be subjecting the components to different activities, or they would be in the different treatments, whereby which you would be getting an end result. Then you have what is called as the outbound logistics. So in outbound logistics, what will happen is you would be here you would be talking about distribution, packaging, and shipping, etc. So that is what is covered in outbound. Then you have marketing and sales. So here you would be talking about activities that would result in taking the product to the market. You're positioning your product in front of your customers or in front of your clients. How effectively are you able to do that? If you look at Apple's strategy is that Apple's products are something which is out of the reach of common people. They are looking at a different strata of the society. So when they do that, they try and position Apple products as a premium product. So that is how the marketing and the sales department would be focusing on that. Because how you want to showcase, how you want to position your product, that is how you would be bringing the product before the public. After sales services, so your relationship with your customer, your relationship with your client does not get over with the point of interaction. There would be so many places, there would be so many products where you may have to provide after service channels. So here's the thing, you bought the best product in the market, but you ran maybe 1 month down the lane, you ran into a problem, and then you're trying to reach out to the customer care. The customer care is not very prompt, or they're not very good. What is your perception? In such cases, if your experience was not very good, are you likely to go back and repeat the purchase? So these are the kind of aspects that the organization will have to look at. I remember when I was in IBM, whenever the company, whenever a client decides to move out from IBM and go with another vendor, IBM would ensure that the transitioning of the services or the projects from IBM to the new vendor would happen in a very systematic and a very organized manner. Because IBM always believes in the philosophy that tomorrow, just in case if the client were to reconsider that decision, they should always come back to IBM. So that is the perception, that is the vision that the management has, even when someone chooses to give up on IBM services and move away from the company. So my point over here was that in certain case scenarios, in certain case products and services, even the after-sales service is very crucial. You may have the best product in the market, but if you do not create effective channels to cater to your customers or client support, it could result in a very nasty experience for them. So this was what we were discussing. Now let's move further from here. Now let me talk to you about the secondary services. Secondary services are those services which support primary services. They're responsible for supporting primary services. Now, when you talk about primary services, secondary services, it can be, you can have procurement, you can have technology, you can have human resource, you can have infrastructure. So these are the kind of activities which can be brought about in terms of secondary activities. So I remember some time back there was a flight which was called as American Airlines. And American Airlines, what they did was to facilitate better technology services for the clients or for the customers. What they did was they had portable card readers, and they gave this over to their air hostesses, and they were able to connect that with their phones. And just in case, in sitting in the flight, if one of their customers or one of the passengers were to request for any value-add service, so let's say he wants to suddenly move from economic class to VIP class or first class, or if he wants to change the seat location and there is availability. So in order to make sure that is facilitated, they were giving this. Now, this is a technology enhancement. Now, why are you providing this technology enhancement? This technology enhancement is being provided to the operations team, which is the air hostess, so that they can effectively carry out their activities. So these are the kind of activities which will help in supporting the primary activities, whereby in ensuring that there is a value proposition for your product or service. So this is a gist about value chain analysis, accounting. So the next trend that we will be talking about was what is called as activity-based costing. Now, activity-based costing, it is also called as the ABC costing. Here, what happens is, in order for you to derive at the price of a complex product, you will try and identify how each of the individual activities are aligned, and then you will try and narrow down on the cost of each of these activities and then collectively come at the price. So now that we just saw a few videos on Coca-Cola and Pepsi, I just want to pick up that as an example. If you look at the comprehensive production units of these fizz drinks, they will have multiple stages. You have one stage where the actual fizz drink would be manufactured, then you would have bottling, then you would have packaging. So each of these is a separate activity by itself. So in activity-based costing, what will happen is each of these costs are individually identified, and then the price is taken, and then you would collectively go about deriving the overall price of the product. So here, the rationale is that there is a relationship between the various activities and the end product. So you have to understand in the case of certain products, activities which are involved, it is very complex in nature. It may have multiple stages which are involved. So for you to effectively price your product, you will have to go for this kind of a activity. Now, some challenges that you're likely to face over here is there would be certain indirect costs that you would be incurring. How do you go about distributing these indirect costs? So I can give you an example. Let's say you have invested into a facility in your for your organization. Now you can use that facility that you have created for your organization as long as your company is likely to exist. So let's say your company may be there for 50 years or 100 years or 200 years. But in such cases, how do you go about distributing that cost, the cost that you have spent? How do you go about distributing that? So this is quite difficult. So in certain cases, the management may find it a little difficult to go about distributing the costs for certain activities, and they may not be able to effectively do that. Now, next trend that I want to talk to you about is what is called as quality costing. Quality costing, it is also called as quality cost or cost of quality. So here you're trying to do an evaluation, trying to see what is the cost that is incurred by your company in order to provide quality products to your customers. So for example, when you look at your product, the product will have it may have multiple components, and each of these components, there would be multiple stages to it. There would be multiple levels to it. So how exactly what kind of a quality product, what kind of a product are you looking at? Are you looking at substandard quality products, or are you looking at the best quality products? So depending on that, you would go about, changing the quality of your product will change. So that is what is called as cost of quality or quality costing. So quality costing, how do you go about effectively, leveraging on this particular strategy to provide quality products to your customers? You're trying to judge and gauge and see how much does it cost for you to bring out quality products to your customers, because just like the video example that I gave you, you may have cheaper alternatives in your neighborhood market, but if you are planning to create a differentiation for yourself, then how do you go about leveraging on that? So that is what is meant by quality costing. So here the trade-off is that you may have to compromise on low quality products and go for high end, because of which there may be a changes in the price of your product, as a result of which you may or you may not be able to live up or match up with your competitors. Next is life cycle costing. Here what happens is you would look at the cumulative cost of a entire product's life cycle, starting all the way from its development until you decide to give away with it or you decide to phase out the product. Okay, so this comprehensive end-to-end cycle costing is what is called as life cycle costing. So life cycle costing starts all the way from R&D until such time that you decide to phase away. So for example, you can apply life cycle costing to COVID vaccination development, because maybe 3 or 4 years down the line, when COVID is eradicated completely, these vaccines and the custom machines that you've created may not hold good for you. So in such cases, you may have to look and see how much amount of money did you spend for R&D, how much money did you spend for infrastructure. All those aspects have to be taken into account. Then you have the human resource accounting. So human resource accounting, you're trying to understand how much of investments have you carried out on your human resource. So organizations would go about with human resource accounting because sometimes there are certain things that you may not be able to account for. It may not be very easy. So for example, IT companies, they usually have a practice of hiring non-IT employees or non-IT graduates, and then they would invest into them and then give them the appropriate technical training and then put them onto production or put them onto projects. So in order to train them, in order to upskill them, in order to ensure that they have best of their best abilities in place, you may have to look at how much money are you collectively spending. So that is what is meant by human resource accounting. So in your organization, sometimes you may have had an experience where the companies may be spending into what is called as competency offerings. You may be in a totally technical role, but the company may be asking you to take up communication skills, or they may be looking at you taking up time management. So what is the company trying to do? They're trying to invest into you. And when they're investing into you, if they have to understand how much money have they collectively spent on you, they will have to carry out what is called as human resource accounting. So one of the first companies in India to carry out human resource accounting was Infosys. Then you have social responsibility accounting. So social responsibility accounting, what happens over here is you're trying to evaluate and see what are the effects that your organization's decision has on the community or has on the society at large. So for example, you may have decided to start up a factory in a thickly populated or in a densely populated area. And sometimes what happens is the kind of product that you're dealing with, you may have to deal with, a lot of effluents. You may have to deal with a lot of pollution. So how exactly is that impacting on your on the society? So that is what is called as social responsibility accounting. Now, this is very crucial, or this is very critical, especially when we deal with companies which are into manufacturing. Because this can have a significant impact. This can have a significant impact. So that is what is meant by social responsibility accounting. Now, a subset of this is what is called as environment accounting. So in environment accounting, what happens is it's an extension of, so you're trying to see how what is the kind of impact your decisions is having on the environment. So pretty sure some of you may have heard about carbon emission accounting and all those aspects. So all these are interrelated. So you're just trying to see how effectively is there a price. So for example, the other day, the one of the courts in India, they had passed a judgment saying that the price tag which is associated with cutting of one tree, one tree, it is roughly around 75,000. So what is the okay, I think I just have that. Okay, so let me just share that with you. the true value of a tree with 100 years of its lifespan would be 72 lakhs. Okay, so this was a significant judgment which was passed by a bench which was headed by the Chief Justice of India. So what are they trying to do over here? Because see, as long as the tree is around, it could contribute a lot to the society at large. So this judgment came in picture when the West Bengal government, they decide to chop off around 350 trees in order to construct railway bridges. Okay, so 350 trees had to be cut off, and then so that you could make way for modernization, you could make way for industrialization. So 350 trees, you're trying to understand what impact does it have on the society at large. So that's when they came up with a picture saying that, you know, each tree's value should be 72 lakhs. If that's the case, chopping off around 350 trees, that will cost you around 500 crores. Because that is the kind of impact that decision is having on the society. Okay? That's the kind of decision that it is having on the society. So that is what you're trying to do as a part of environment accounting. Then there's another concept which is called as green accounting. So in green accounting, what happens is you're trying to see, you're looking at sustainable solutions, and sometimes some of these sustainable solutions may turn out to be a costly affair for you, but how is there a value that you can assign for it? So for example, you may have decided to give up on your petrol car, you may have decided to go in for an electric model. Okay, so think about it. The electric model, the EV car may cost you more. Okay, it is definitely a higher investment in terms of, you know, cost. So how do you make up for it? So those are the kind of things that will come into picture when you look at green costing. Then you have what is called as cloud-based accounting solutions. So this is something that I don't think I may have to touch upon much. Basically, most of the accounting softwares which are used now, instead of having a server-client relationship or a local computer model, most of them they're moving into cloud-based storage. So one of the best examples that I can share with you for that would be Tally Cloud ERP. Or another solution that I can share with you, I think as a part of your assignment, so most of you must have done this, QuickBook. So these are some of the cloud-based accounting solutions which are available. Next is accounting automations. So here in accounting automation, what happens is you would try and integrate the activities of your organization in such a way that it would get automated. So for example, the other day I was looking at a personal expense tracker app, and if I were to give the app permission to read my messages and emails as and when I carry out transactions, when I get the SMS notifications and the email alerts, what that app will do is app will automatically collect the expenses and then put that into the app. Okay, so that's an example of an automation. So similarly, organizations are looking at, you know, automations. So the other day I was sitting with another person. He's the IT architect of Tally, and then he was giving me some insights about the recent developments for Tally software. Because since I was an accounting teacher, I was quite interested in it, and he shared how using Tally, there are different modules that you can integrate, and then let's say you approve. Using Tally itself, if you key in the payment details, it will automatically talk to the commercial banking solutions, and then the payment is automatically triggered for the corresponding vendor. So all these are examples of accounting automation. So the next major breakthrough is what is called as artificial intelligence. So as a part of artificial intelligence, what happens is that you would be leveraging on accounting informations. You would be applying certain algorithms. You will be applying certain systems so that these can be churned, and you'll be able to come out with comprehensive solutions. So one simple example was I was interacting with one of the developers at a company called as Intuit. Okay, so he was saying how so Intuit has got certain comprehensive software packages for banks. So what they would do is they would study the transaction trends of customers, and using those trends, they would be able to understand the software will be able to predict, does this customer need a loan or not? So that's an example of artificial intelligence. So based on that, those inputs would be, so your savings bank transactions are available with the bank. They would run this pack, they would run the software, they would identify the leads, pass it on to the loans department. Loans department would give you a call. Example of artificial intelligence. So these are some of the collective recent trends which are happening in the area of accounting.